Okay, so I thought the weird space tuba noises were maybe just an issue with my house, but it's not. So we still have them. My apologies. Maybe one day I'll figure it out. So we're going to use a score from your oral skills course pack just to practice the Roman numeral analysis that we did in class today. So this is on page 13 of your skills course pack if you want to grab it and follow along. But we're just going to go through kind of the same way we did in class today, putting some Roman numerals on a couple of harmonies. So your first job before you do anything is to figure out what key you're in. The easiest way is honestly to look at the first or the last harmony because those tend to be tonic, the last harmony especially. So that's a really good first kind of guess. So I'm going to scroll up to the beginning, and our very first harmony here, by looking at that, you've got a G and a B and a D here. So it builds a G triad. Your two options with this key signature are G major or E minor. And that first harmony being a G triad is a really, really strong indicator that we're in G. So we're going to go ahead and assume correctly that that is our key. So I'm going to label that before we even start, because that's going to inform, obviously, what Roman numerals we use and what pattern of major and minor Roman numerals we refer to. So let's take a look then at this very first harmony. So we're looking at this harmony right here. And our first step is to collect the pitches that we're dealing with. And we're going to have some duplicates, which is totally normal. So let's just sketch in or draw in our letter names. So we have a G and another G in the left hand of the piano. We get a B and a D in the right hand and a G in the voice. So getting rid of all the duplicates, then you have three distinct pitches, three unique pitches, and they are G, B, and a D. So now your task is to figure out who the root of that triad is. So I've got a little bit of space on the vocal line, so I'm going to go ahead and sketch in. Here's a G, here's my B, and here is my D. And that actually spells itself very nicely into a snowman root position triad. So this reveals then that G is the root. And so then we go and look at the lowest voice. So we know we have a triad built off of G, a triad where G is the root. Let's look at the lowest voice and see what's in it. And G is in the lowest voice as well. So our G triad is in root position because the root is in the lowest voice. So now to put a Roman numeral label on it, we just have to figure out what scale degree G is in the key of G major. So it might be helpful to have a G major scale written out for you, or if you can just do it in your head, spelling up the letter names, that's totally cool too. So this will give us our scale degrees, which will inform our Roman numerals. And G, this was kind of an obvious one, but G is scale degree 1 in G major. So that will be a Roman numeral 1. And we know from our pattern of major and minor Roman numerals that we worked out today in class, that in major keys, the Roman numeral 1 is always major. So we're going to stick a Roman numeral 1 on that entire first measure. So you could tell the right hand doesn't change at all. And the left hand, although it does change, it's just jumping from one G to the other. So that is one entire measure of just that harmony. Okay, let's look at the next measure. So we'll take a look at what's going on in the downbeat. And again, first step, what notes are we dealing with? Don't forget the key signature. That's going to become really important because we have F sharps in the left hand of the piano. And then in the right hand, we have an A and a D, and the voice is singing an A. So again, we have duplicated pitches, but there are 3 unique notes, and they are F sharp, A, and D. So I'm going to write them as I read them, F sharp, A, and D. And by looking at that, you can immediately tell visually that it is not in root position. We have 2 notes that are on spaces and 1 note that is on a line. The easiest way to make it root position is take the odd one out, so the one pitch that in this instance is not on a space, and change its octave. So I'm going to bring this D down the octave. And when I do that, that's going to put it on a space. It's the space right below the staff. And that reveals that it is actually the root of this triad, because now I'll erase this upper one so it doesn't confuse anybody. Now we have got a triad that is in stacked thirds. Everyone is on a space, and D is the root of that triad. So since D is the root, we can go ahead and put the Roman numeral in already. So we can go back to our scale here, G, A, B, C, D. D is built off of, is scale degree 5. So that means it's going to have a Roman numeral 5. And knowing our pattern of major and minor and diminished quality Roman numerals, the Roman numeral 5 is always major in major keys. Now, the last step is to see if you need an inversion symbol. We know that D is the root of this triad, but now we have to check and see who is in the bass voice, who is in the lowest voice. So looking at the lowest voice in your left hand, it is actually not a D, it is an F sharp. So let's go back up to our triad here. We have D as our root, and I'll write it in letter names up here. D is the root, F sharp is the 3rd, and A is the 5th. So I just took this triad as we notated it, and I put it in letter names. F sharp is the 3rd of the triad. The 3rd of the triad is in the bass voice. That means that we need to put an inversion symbol on this Roman numeral. And from last week, when we learned these, I'll sketch it up here. Our root position triads don't get anything in terms of symbols. They're just blank. And we know that also from the root position triad we wrote down here. And then we have the 3rd in the bass, which is first inversion. And the 5th in the bass, which is second inversion. And our figures for those: first inversion triads get a 6-3. Second inversion triads get a 6-4. And if you want a refresher on that, the previous video I did for root quality and inversion spells that out kind of a little more fully. But for right now, we have F sharp in the bass, which is the 3rd of this triad. 3rd in the bass means that we put the label 6-3 on our Roman numeral. So we would call this entire measure, because again, nobody really changes. The left hand just bounces around in octaves. We would label that as a 5-6-3, or alternatively for shorthand, you might also see just 5-6. We do abbreviate the first inversion triad quite often as just 5-6, but either is entirely correct. Okay, so this process will be the same whether you're in major or minor. The big things to remember are the series of Roman numerals for major and minor keys. So what Roman numerals are what quality in major and in minor keys. If you have that committed to memory or can access it quickly, that is going to make this go so much faster because you don't have to worry about what quality the triads are. As long as there's not an accidental on anybody, then you can just default to that series of Roman numerals. Okay, hopefully by the next video, I'll have figured out what this weird noise is and it will, and you don't have to listen to it for the entire time. Cool. I'll see you guys tomorrow.